Every month, we help around 30 businesses apply for operators' licenses. And one thing I can tell you is this. Most applications that run into problems could have been avoided before they were ever submitted. If you're thinking about buying a vehicle, starting a transport operation, expanding your fleet, or applying for an operator's license, this video could save you a significant amount of time, money, and frustration. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to explain the 7 biggest things every operator should consider before submitting an application. We'll cover whether you actually need an operator's license, which license type is right for your business, financial standing requirements, operating center requirements, maintenance arrangements, transport manager requirements, and the compliance responsibilities that come after your license is granted. My name is Rowan Vernon. I'm the Managing Director of Nationwide Transport and Training. We're a transport compliance consultancy and training business, helping clients throughout the UK and Ireland. From first-time applicants buying their first vehicle, to established operators adding vehicles, adding operating centres, upgrading licence types, and expanding their businesses. Operator licensing is something we deal with every single day. We see what causes applications to be granted smoothly, we see what causes delays, and we see the mistakes operators make before they ever submit an application. One thing I've learned over the years is this. An operator's license application is not simply about completing paperwork. It's about proving to the regulator that you understand your responsibilities and that you have the systems in place, the resources and arrangements to operate compliantly. It's about demonstrating that your business is financially stable. Your vehicles will be properly maintained, your drivers will be managed correctly, and that you're capable of operating safely and compliantly. An operator's license isn't simply permission to use a lorry. It's a regulatory license issued by the Traffic Commissioner that allows you to operate commercial goods vehicles legally. But more importantly, it's the regulator's way of ensuring operators are financially stable and professionally managed and operating safe, roadworthy vehicles. So let's start with one of the most common questions we receive. Do you actually need an operator's license? For many businesses, if you're operating a goods vehicle over 3.5 tons for business purposes, you will need an operator's license. The same can also apply to certain vehicle and trailer combinations. However, the answer isn't always straightforward. The type of goods you're carrying matters. Whose goods they are matters. Where you're traveling matters. And the nature of your operation matters. For example, let's imagine you're a building contractor. You've purchased a 7.5 ton vehicle. You're using it to transport tools, materials and equipment between sites. Many operators assume that because they're carrying their own goods, operator licensing doesn't apply. But that's not often the case. We also regularly speak to operators using pickup trucks and trailers. Many assume that they're completely outside operator licensing, only to discover later that additional requirements apply. The important point is this. Before you buy vehicles, before you sign contracts, and before you invest money into transport operations, make sure you establish exactly what licensing requirements apply to your business. Getting this wrong at the beginning can become an expensive mistake later. Once you've established that you need an operator's license, the next question is, which license is right for your business? For goods vehicles, there are 3 main types: restricted, standard national, and standard international. A restricted license is generally suitable when you're carrying your own goods in connection with your own business. For example, builders, plant hire companies, manufacturers, or merchants delivering their own products. A standard national license allows you to carry other people's goods for hire or reward within the UK. A standard international license allows you to carry goods for hire or reward both within the UK and internationally. The easiest way to think about it is this. If you're only carrying your own goods in connection with your own business, you may need a restricted license. If you're carrying goods for somebody else and you're getting paid to do it, you will normally require a standard license. One of the biggest differences between a restricted license and a standard license is the requirement for a professionally competent transport manager. A standard license requires one, a restricted license does not. Now, let's imagine a business starts with one vehicle, delivering its own products. A restricted license might be perfect. 6 months later, a customer asks them to transport goods on their own behalf. Suddenly, the business has changed. The license type may no longer be suitable, and a variation application may be required. This is why we spend time understanding not only what a client is doing today, but what they intend to do tomorrow. Choosing the correct license from the outset can save significant time, cost, and administration later. Now, let's talk about financial standing, because this is one of the most misunderstood parts of the application process. The Traffic Commissioner must be satisfied that significant financial resources are available to maintain and operate vehicles safely. The amount required depends on the type of license and the number of authorised vehicles. Standard operators must maintain specific levels of financial standing for the first vehicle and for every additional vehicle. Restricted operators must also demonstrate financial resources, although the requirements differ. We'll put the financial standing figures at the time of recording this video on the screen. These figures are reviewed periodically, so always make sure that you're working from the latest requirements. Financial standing can often be evidenced through business bank accounts, savings, overdraft facilities, credit union accounts, and other acceptable financial resources. But here's where many operators come unstuck. Let's imagine an applicant transfers a large sum of money into their account the day before submitting an application. From their perspective, they have met the requirement. However, the regulator may ask further questions. Where did the funds come from? Are they genuinely available to the business? Will they remain available? Are there repayment obligations? One reason I'm highlighting this is because we see it regularly. The operator often has enough money. The problem is how the money is evidenced. Understanding financial standing properly before applying can save weeks of delays later. Next, let's talk about operating centres. If there's one area that consistently catches out new applicants, it's this. Many people believe that if a vehicle physically fits somewhere, the operating centre is suitable. Unfortunately, it's not that simple. The Traffic Commissioner may consider vehicle movements, available space, access arrangements, nearby residential properties, the environmental impact, and future growth plans. Let's imagine you've secured a yard behind a commercial property. The vehicle fits perfectly, the access looks reasonable, everything appears fine, then the application is reviewed. Concerns are raised about vehicle manoeuvring, access routes, or neighbouring properties. Additional evidence is requested. The application is delayed. This happens far more often than people realise. In fact, operating centres are one of the areas we spend the most time reviewing with clients. It's far easier to identify potential concerns before an application is submitted than it is to resolve afterwards. Next, let's talk about maintenance, because maintenance is one of the most important responsibilities attached to an operator's licence. The regulator expects operators to have suitable maintenance arrangements in place before vehicles start operating. Maintenance isn't simply servicing the vehicle. It is making sure vehicles remain roadworthy every day they're used. It includes safety inspections, repairing defects, keeping maintenance records, brake performance testing, and daily defect reporting. A common mistake is assuming maintenance can be organised later. Maintenance planning should form part of the application process itself. Strong maintenance systems are one of the foundations of a compliant operation, and they're something every operator should take seriously from day one. One thing people often forget: every driver should complete a daily walk-around check before taking a vehicle onto the road. These checks should identify defects affecting roadworthiness, and any defects should be reported, recorded, and rectified where necessary. Driver walkaround checks are one of the first things enforcement officers often ask about. If you're applying for a standard license, you'll normally require a professionally competent transport manager. Many people think this is simply naming somebody on an application form. In reality, the transport manager has a significant role in ensuring compliance. The Traffic Commissioner expects that individual to exercise effective and continuous management of the transport operation. Professional competence means having somebody who holds a transport manager CPC qualification. That person is responsible for overseeing compliance, maintenance, drivers, tachographs, and record keeping, and making sure the operation continues to meet the requirements of the license. Let's imagine a company appoints a transport manager who rarely visits the operating centre, rarely reviews compliance records, and has very limited involvement in the operation. On paper, everything may appear satisfactory. In reality, that arrangement may not meet the regulator's expectations. A transport manager should be actively involved. They should understand the operation, and they should have sufficient time available to fulfill their responsibilities properly. The final point is probably the most important. Obtaining the license is only the start. The real challenge is maintaining compliance after the license has been granted. Imagine two operators receive their licenses on exactly the same day. One implements compliance systems, manages maintenance effectively, reviews driver performance, and keeps accurate records. The other assumes the hard work is over. Fast forward 2 years. One business is growing successfully. The other is dealing with investigations, compliance concerns, regulatory intervention, and potentially a public inquiry. An operator's license is not simply permission to operate commercial vehicles. It is an ongoing commitment to compliance. The operators who understand that from day one are often the operators who build successful and sustainable businesses. If you're considering applying for an operator's license, adding vehicles, changing operating centres, upgrading your license type, or simply want to understand your obligations, we'd be happy to help. At Nationwide Transport and Training, our team assists with around 30 operator license applications every month across the UK and Ireland. We support operators with new applications, licensing variations, operating centre assessments, financial standing requirements, transport manager arrangements, compliance management, and auditing services. If you'd like to discuss your plans, get in touch with the team today. We'll be happy to point you in the right direction and help you get things right from the start. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.